All right. Let's get this out of the way first. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast are solely those of the speakers, guests, and host, and do not in any way represent the thoughts or views or opinions of any other employer, partnership, or sponsor. The material and information in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should be used at the listener's discretion.
Here comes the intro. Skip forward 30 seconds if you want to get right to the episode. This is the Tailboard Talk Podcast, the best health, wellness, and lifestyle resource for the fire service. We're using stories, lessons, and tips from the front lines to give a realistic view of what the job can do to us and how we can make it out alive. I'm Chris Morella, a firefighter since 03, medic since 05, full-time since 08, and promoted to lieutenant in 20. I'm also a personal trainer and strength coach, and I'm here to give you the best information and host the best discussions to make us capable and durable, both on the job and away from it. So grab a heater, steal some fancy creamer from First Shift, and let's go chat. Okay, let's get going. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Tailboard Talks Firefighter Podcast, and we're live from the beach this week. We're out in Grand Haven, Michigan on a camping trip. Katie took the kids for a walk. So I'm knocking this one out real quick because I want to get back to the beach. It's nice here. It's only 70s, but there was actually a point yesterday where it got warm. The whole thing is sand. So we're at a state park that's on the corner of the Grand River and Lake Michigan. The whole thing is sand. And for a second yesterday, we actually thought we were in Florida. It was pretty cool. So getting back to them in a second. But I want to get on here and do a quick episode real fast. Two subjects today. We're going to talk about opportunity cost of doing nothing, because that came up in a conversation. And then some low back stuff. I've had a couple of people ask me recently about low back problems. And there's a relatively fundamental principle I'm going to go over with your lower back and how you might be able to help yourself a little bit. So, first thing, we're just going to jump right into it. First thing, opportunity cost of doing nothing. This is a conversation that came up because I have it with myself frequently, but then because it was a part of last week's episode, we talked about opportunity cost. And if you remember, opportunity cost is essentially, it's a difficult thing, but basically, it's what you could be doing if you didn't take the opportunity. All right, so it's hard to explain. I'm gonna get you a good, simple definition here. Opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. So you take this road, and because you take this road, you can't do this road over here. It's usually the next best thing is over here, but you took this one, now you can't do this one. That's the opportunity cost. The cost of this opportunity is that one, okay? And it can be several things. It can be time away from the family. It can be money. It can be, it usually isn't money. That's a different kind of cost. But it's experiences that you can't do because you're doing something else, okay? And so then the question usually comes up of kind of naturally like, well, if I'm comfortable doing this thing, and I know that if I do something else, it's going to cost me something else, why wouldn't I just keep doing this thing? So what's the opportunity cost of doing nothing? That seems like doing nothing seems like a good thing to do. You're not going to miss out on anything because you're doing what you want to do, right? Kinda, but absolutely not. But actually not. Because when you start thinking about it, you don't know what those costs are until the future potentially. So I looked up the opportunity cost of doing nothing because it turns out other people think about this too. And it's what you lose by carrying on as is versus doing the thing that requires effort and change. It's the event that you didn't attend. So essentially what they're saying there is effort equals change, which equals more opportunity potentially, which can be kind of tough for us to figure out in the stomach because you can't always see that opportunity. Here's a simple example that if I have the opportunity to go get my chain fixed or my brakes fixed on my bike and I don't take advantage of the opportunity because I don't want to spend time away from the family or I don't want to go to the bike shop or I don't want to miss Nathan's swim class, I could be doing that instead of going to get my bike fixed. Now we're on this camping trip and we go take a bike ride and my chain breaks or my brakes don't work, and that's bad, right? So I've lost the opportunity to go on a bike ride because I didn't want to spend on that experience kind of in the beginning. Here's another one that's kind of come up as we've been riding our bikes around. One just went by right now. E-bikes. Now, you may not expect this. I have an e-bike. I love it. It's the coolest thing. But as we're around here at the campground, we went on a pretty long bike ride yesterday, and there were people who were riding e-bikes. People who were riding e-bikes on this path. And had they not had an e-bike, quite honestly, they probably wouldn't have been on that path. It was a longer, challenging ride, but they were doing it no problem. They invested in a bike. They went and sought out a bike. They found a bike, and they gained more opportunity by doing that. They could have very easily sat back and be like, well, I can't ride a bike that far. I'm just going to not ride a bike anymore. But they took the opportunity to get a bike that would help them do that. And now they did it. They did it and they had fun doing it. They're doing things that they wouldn't be able to do before because they made a little bit of change. So the opportunity cost of doing nothing is kind of everything. And that sounds super, super zen and awesome and also a little bit obnoxious, but I think it's true. And not true all the time, right? Sometimes opportunities aren't that great. You think they're great, ends up being a dud. What if you buy a junky e-bike? Excuse me. What if you buy a junky e-bike and it breaks down halfway, right? But the opportunity cost of doing nothing is a lot of things. So keep that in mind when you want to continue on the straight and narrow or the comfortable path. Sometimes that's right. Sometimes there might be a little bit of effort required, and it might afford you more opportunity in the future. Okay, so keep that in mind. Part number 2, as I said, quick episode. I had a couple people reach out, one at work, one away from work, asked me about back pain, and they kind of said, man, my lower back's been bugging me a lot recently. And this is kind of the general statement that comes across, right? My lower back's been bugging me. I also have this hamstring problem. What's going on? And so usually I tell them that, well, without looking at you and putting you through a screen, all the obligatory stuff, it's likely your butt. Your butt is likely causing your back pain. Likely. Not always, not all the time. It could be an ankle problem further down the chain. But your butt is directly tied to your lower back. And that's because of this very fundamental principle. Kurt and I have gone over this before. I'm sure we've mentioned it, but always worth repeating, that your body is organized in different joints that need different things, and they alternate each other. So in general, the 2 types of joints are mobile joints and stable joints. Some joints need more mobility to be healthy, and some joints need more stability to be healthy. Your lower back happens to be a joint that needs more stability to be healthy and do its job. Now, there's always movement that will come from your lower back. That's good. Your spine is built to move. It's a bunch of little hinges in there, okay? But primarily, your lower back's job is to hold on and stabilize and protect your lower back. What that means is the joints above it and below it are supposed to be mobile. They're supposed to move really well. The joints above it and below it is your T-spine, so it doesn't feel like a joint. You wouldn't expect it to be, but your spine is a bunch of different segments, okay? And the lower part is supposed to be stable. The upper part between your shoulder blades is supposed to move all over the place. A lot of times that's tied up. Bad posture, sedentary stuff, old injuries, whatever. The lower half is your hips. Your hips are supposed to be very mobile and have some stability when needed. They're power transfer things, but they're supposed to be mobile. Almost made a mistake there. So here's where it comes into play. If your hips are too tight, they've turned into a stable joint. Okay. If there is now a stable joint errantly, that means that your lower back has to turn into a mobile joint. And when your lower back turns into a mobile joint, that's when you start to have back pain, back issues, a feeling of a lot of tension in your back. And that's an appropriate feeling. It's not that you need to stretch it or roll it or do anything. It's you need to get your hips moving. Because if your hips start moving again, your lower back will be able to do its job and hold still or be stable and secure. But again, if your hips are not moving, if your hips are really tight and they are locked up, your lower back will have to compensate, and then you have trouble. So think about bending over to pick up a piece of paper, right? There's the theory that back injuries happen at 2 times. Maximum tension, like you're under a 500-pound back squat and it explodes, or zero tension, when you bend over to pick up a pencil or a piece of paper and there's no protection whatsoever. And your hips don't work, so at a certain point your hips stop moving and your lower back has to take over the rest of the movement. And then your lower back starts moving again, and then your hips start moving again. You've made your lower back be mobile because your hips can't get down to the ground. So you've added a mobile joint where it's supposed to be stable. Those little tiny muscles in there aren't supposed to do all that. They're supposed to move this much, not this much. And when you make them move this much, a lot of times you get issues. So that's just a very, very brief, very tiny recap of mobile stable joints, and something that it just keeps coming up. It's an evergreen thing because people have a lot of back pain. People sit down like this a lot. We're going to drive 6 hours tomorrow to get home. We'll be sitting a lot. And then I'm going to get out and try to set up the camper. There's a good chance that my hips will be tight from sitting. And then I'm going to try to do a bunch of stuff. And tomorrow night I might have a little bit of back tightness, all right? Lower back soreness. But if we know why, then we can start to treat it. You can start foam rolling and stretching your hips, your piriformis, your hamstrings a little bit, right? And get those things moving again, so now your lower back isn't sacrificed because of your naturally occurring lifestyle. You got to go a little above and beyond. Now, this also, just in my mind here, ties back to opportunity cost, okay? If you invest in a little bit more mobility in your hips, you take that opportunity, you take some more time out of your day and you invest in that path, maybe don't go down the path of lower back pain. You've gained the opportunity not to have lower back pain because you've spent time treating your hips and your T-spine. Stretch, I don't know. I mean, is it a stretch? I don't know. Is it directed? Yes. Directly related? Yes. I'm sorry I'm rushing through this one. I'm going to try to get on the bike and go catch up to Katie and Nathan, but I love talking to you guys and having these episodes out. So we're going to cut this one off very, very soon today. A couple wrap-up things. Just a reminder that I'm available for speaking engagements starting in 2024, sooner if possible, but it could be pretty tight, right? It's already August, I think. Yes, new website's launching in September. If you go onto the 4Shift Fitness website now, 4shiftfitness.com, there's a form there. There's 2 forms you can fill out for podcast guests and topic requests, and there's a form for speaking engagements. Go fill it out. I'll get back to you. We'll see what we can do. In September, launching the new website, 4th Shift Firefighter, expanding it because today we talked about fitness, but a lot of episodes besides this one, and even talking about opportunity costs, is not really fitness stuff, but it's firefighter lifestyle stuff, right? And so we're expanding to 4Shift Firefighter, 4Shift Fitness, and the Tailboard Talks podcast are going to be little legs of that company. But look for that in September, and then some big things coming out in October, November. Little bit of a movement and lifestyle challenge starting in October. That is going to be very cool for you guys. Started doing some of my clients already, and they like it. Looking forward to that. Okay. That's it, man. We're cutting this one off. 10 minutes. I appreciate you guys checking this out. Thank you for all the new listeners. There's been a little bit of a jump in listenership in the past couple weeks after some awesome guests. And good news, we got more awesome guests coming up. Jeff, I got your text. I'll be talking to you soon. Really excited about that one. But thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you guys soon. Keep on working towards being more capable and durable, both on shift and away from it. And starting in September, be a 4-shift firefighter. See ya.